every message to the kids, your number come back to Tangri or whatever it is, the app that tried to hide it. Your number, was, even though it was being hid, showed up every single message.
My number?
Yep. Does it have to do with Owen? Is there an infatuation there with Owen?
Nothing like that.
Okay, and just tell me what did he treat Lauren bad? I mean, something serious went on for a while, right?
It didn't start that way.
Oh, that was a little bit on the embarrassing side at best and horrific side at worst. This case is gonna blow your mind. There is a documentary on it at the moment. Some of you may have seen it, but for those of you who have not, this will be enlightening on your journey to comparing yourself as a parent with other people. And this case will make you go, well, even on my worst days, it turns out I'm an absolutely brilliant parent because I wouldn't ever come close to the kind of actions of the individual we're going to explore today. Let's go back to 2020. This is when 13-year-old Lauren Licari begins receiving a torrent of abusive, threatening messages. In fact, she received over 12,000 in total. Now, this appeared to initially come from anonymous classmates. You know, we see this play out. Young people go to school, they end up getting cyberbullied. It's a growing phenomena since social media has arrived and, of course, through smart technology. So this is something that is synonymous with a lot of young people's experience in school. But for Lauren, it is genuinely disturbing on a completely different level. We're talking next level FBI involvement. It's as simple as that. Let's talk about one of our victims here, because there are actually multiple victims. So Lauren Licari, she was born in 2007. She's a baby, isn't she? 2007. She's still young now. It's only 2025. She was born in Beale City in Michigan. Really sporty girl. Played basketball, played softball, really good at it. She was known as a very kind girl, a sociable girl, more introspective, I would say, less extrovert. In junior high, though, she ends up meeting a guy and she begins dating Owen McKenney. He's a football player at the same school. Now, this is not a big school. It's not a big area. We're talking about an area where people know each other. They know each other's business, they know each other's relationships, and that is really positive in one area, i.e. the fact you feel safe, secure, you've got foundation bases. But in another, it can feel a little bit suffocating at times, can't it, if everybody knows your business? That's the kind of area that these kids come from. Now, they get involved in this relationship and Owen and Lauren become really inseparable. And at this point, their friends and their classmates actually nickname them the golden couple because they go into high school and everyone is to some degree jealous of the fact that they're young and yet they seem to be in a committed, loving relationship. Now, obviously, where young love is concerned, your parents are going to want to know about your relationship. And certainly as a young person, it's really helpful when your parents get on with your love interest. And Lauren's mother, Kendra Licari, well, she's a devoted parent. She's somebody that certainly seems to approve of their relationship. She was born in 1980, and Kendra actually moved to Beale City after college. She married Lauren's father, Sean Licari. The couple settled down. They had one child together, which is Lauren. Kendra worked in the IT department at Ferry State University. It's a local university. She also was really keen on being involved in her daughter's life positively. She volunteered as a coach for her daughter's middle school basketball team. And the cousin of Kendra describes her when she was growing up as being somebody who was really outgoing. She really liked attention, but she was fundamentally a really good person. I would say that behind closed doors, just like for the most part of all of our lives, things aren't exactly what other people believe they are. And the Licari family are no exception. They're not perfect. So Kendra and Sean's marriage, it was struggling, it was flailing, and they eventually actually went through a divorce after 2021. And family and friends noted that Kendra and Lauren were really close. In fact, they were, quote, at the center of each other's lives. I don't think that's unusual. Genuinely, my kids are at the center of my life. I don't know what I have in my life without my kids. They are my world. And I'm sure that every single one of you with children here listening to me now, you get that. They are at the center of our lives because We are inextricably attached to them. They are the thread of connection that runs through our veins. So they represent that. They're obviously considered very close, they get on very well, and she's a very supportive mother. Now, Kendra herself had quite a similar relationship with athletics as the daughter does. So she was a former high school athlete. And I suppose what you could say is that she poured quite a lot of her identity into Lauren's activities and achievements. But again, as an ex-gymnastics mum, because both of my boys were elite and comp athletes, they were very much into gymnastics. I spent 16 and a half to 18 and a half hours a week sat at gymnastics watching them. Of course, part of your identity goes into what they do. At the end of the day, you want them to succeed and you're the biggest cheerleader. So again, not completely atypical there. She also was very involved in trying to contribute positively towards Lauren's life. So she coached Lauren in youth softball and basketball. She even joined in on trips with her friends. And she even joked around with Lauren's teammates. So she'd make silly TikToks with them. She'd often drive them to games. So she's really embedded in Lauren's wider life. And again, this is really positive. It's what we want with our kids. I would say that Lauren's father, Sean, he is less in the spotlight than Kendra. He's very involved with his daughter's life, but not to the extent that she is. He was originally from Beale City. He actually worked in the area, and people who knew him said he was a really caring and steady dad that represented his daughter by being a foundation in her life. Now, another person who's integral to this particular case is Owen McKenney. He's the guy that Lauren had been dating. So they begin dating in 7th grade and they continue dating into early high school. And the McKenney family are really close with the Lacaris, which is the perfect scenario, isn't it? If your kids are dating and they're getting on really well and you're hanging out with their parents, it's a lovely unified experience. Owen's mother, Jill, she was actually one of Kendra's good friends. So the two families end up spending a lot of time together. They joined the same pandemic bubble in 2020. They took joint camping trips for sports tournaments. And I suppose above and beyond what they really did is they trusted each other's kids with each family. So they didn't worry when the children were spending time with the other family. And Kendra even coached Owen's track team at one point. Owen was quoted as saying, "She became like a second mum to me." Now we get to October 2020. Now it has been a challenging time, hasn't it? Let's all be clear about this. You know, we've had the pandemic scenario playing out. It's been stressful. Also, people have at times had a point of pause because they haven't been able to go to work because of the lockdowns and so on and so forth. It's a really unusual period of time. Now, Lauren and Owen are in 8th grade at this point, and it's here that out of the blue, they start receiving strange text messages. Now, those text messages come from an unknown number. Now, one of the earliest texts that they got, they received it as a group message to both of them, and it said, "Hi, Lauren, Owen is breaking up with you." Which would be absolutely devastating to get, wouldn't you? When you're in a relationship with somebody and you get told by a third party that he's breaking up with you. Other texts said things like, "He's no longer likes you, he hasn't liked you for a while, and it's obvious he wants me." So intimating that there is a third party involved that Owen wants to be with. Now, the pair of them are both confused by this, and they kind of put it down to a high school prank. People are just having a bit of a joke with them. And then the silence. They don't carry on. So they just shrug it off. But then 11 months later, those texts begin, and they begin at pace. Now, Lauren and Owen are freshmen at this point at Beale City High School, and on the 13th of September 2021, Lauren receives a barrage of messages, again from an unknown number, and those messages do not stop. And the tone of the text, they just get more vulgar, they get more menacing. She ends up being bombarded with 40 to 50 texts a day, and they go in on her on every single level. So they insult her physique, they insult her personality. One actually mocked her size, called her an anorexic toddler with a, quote, little tyke's body. They also insulted her basketball skills, and that means that whoever is texting know Lauren and actually are seeing Lauren get involved in these activities. Now that is incredibly terrifying. The idea that somebody is stalking you in that way, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a stalker. We're talking about somebody who has access to us and somebody who is actually following what we're doing and then commenting on that. That makes you feel so destabilized. It makes you feel so unsafe, and you don't know who's doing it. So everyone is someone you're suspicious of. It literally underpins a lack of, no, it literally breaks down your foundation of security, and it's horrific to endure. Now, lots of the messages, they fixate on her and Owen's relationship. And this anonymous bully is accusing Lauren of not being good enough for Owen and accuses Owen of cheating on her. In one group text to them both, they wrote that Owen said his life would be better if you were dead and that no one will care if you are gone. So suggesting that she doesn't even need to be alive anymore because there's no use for her and that people's lives would be better without her. Now, bear in mind, when you're a young person and you're going through all the changes and challenges that you go through in teenagehood, this is very dangerous to do to someone because you don't know what's going on in that teenager's life. They're going through peer changes, they're going through pressures at school, they're going through relationship issues with parents often, they're going through a whole heap of pressures. And you are pushing them further and further into the potential abyss where mental health struggles arrive and also where people do make decisions to do utterly serious and damaging things to themselves in response to these kind of scenarios. Now, other texts were really explicit. So they were describing sexual acts that apparently the bully who's sending these messages is engaging in with Owen. One message even included a doctored photo of Lauren from a homecoming with a vomiting emoji covering her face and the words skank and hoe scrawled across her body in red. And these are constant. So the harassment isn't just perpetual, because it really is. I mean, it's constant, but it's the level of cruelty, it's the level of crudeness, it's the persistent nature. This sender is generating endless new phone numbers as well. So Lauren blocks a number, another one pops up. It's inescapable. And those messages are coming in at all hours. Sometimes the messages would come in the middle of the night, or she'd wake up in the morning and they'd be there when she woke up. And according to the Isabella County Sheriff's Office, by the end of the ordeal, investigators had literally collected tens of thousands of messages. I mean, my God, this is literally a full-time job for the individual sending them. And what started off as nasty gossip, it basically ends up escalating to outright threats. So this bully is sometimes threatening physical harm or going ahead and saying to Lauren, quote, "Kill yourself now, bitch." Imagine being Lauren. Lauren's done nothing. Lauren is a quiet kid, a good kid. She works hard. She plays her sports. She's not in any way, shape or form courting anything notorious in her nature. And yet here she is, kill yourself now, bitch. Imagine the impact on this child's mental health, because she is a child and it's devastating. Now, understandably, the effect on Lauren's utterly devastating. Her classmates said that she started to get quieter, she was looking really stressed, and then when she had really bad days, she was just bursting into tears, as you can imagine, because you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is going on? Who is doing this to me? Every single person that you considered a friend, you're thinking, maybe it's them? And she's confiding to her friends that she just doesn't understand why someone hates her that much, which again makes sense. This is not a girl who goes out of her way to make life difficult for other people. She's not a bully. She's under the radar. She's not a loud girl. There's no reason whatsoever why somebody has picked on her specifically and is going in so hard on her. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about somebody going in incredibly hard. And what is really heartbreaking is at one point she actually tries to plead with the bully to stop. And she writes, "I honestly cannot take any more and will do anything you want if you will please stop." Her grades began to slip. She was finding it really hard to concentrate on classes or basketball practice, and she's constantly worrying when's the next message going to arrive. So this is a 24/7 issue for her. She's dealing with the anxiety. She's constantly afraid of the people around her because she doesn't know who's doing it, and she's desperate to find a way out. And this is why it's so dark and dangerous, because these kind of things impact on children's actions and sometimes can lead to them harming themselves. Also, Owen's feeling the toll. He's getting these really nasty messages. Yes, they're sent to Lauren, but bear in mind, Owen's the target too. He's reputationally being attacked. This person is thinking about highly inappropriate things to do with him. I mean, imagine being a young man. You're going through the challenges of being a teenager anyway, and then people are being really inappropriate about you sexually. That's a violation, and psychologically that's devastating to deal with. And friends said that he was usually a person who was super laid back, super cheerful, but he just was really tense. He was really irritable. And again, why? Because he's thinking, I don't know whether you're my friend. I don't know whether you're my friend. You might be the person getting involved in doing this. And at home, his parents said he was snapping. He seemed really miserable. And then he starts to get angry. So he's involved in matches in sports because he's very athletic, and he's starting to get super aggressive, and that's not who he is. That's completely out of character. So it's having this impact on all parties. And of course the parents, they're devastated because this is happening to their children and they have no power over it. All they know is they want it to stop, and they want to do everything in their power to make it stop. Now, a detective who ends up reviewing the case early on actually asked Owen's mother if she feared that Owen might harm himself due to the harassment. And don't get me wrong, they said that even though he was very upset, they didn't think he was at risk of harming himself. But that particular parent said they didn't feel as confident around Lauren. It was hitting her so hard. Now, initially, the community, this includes Lauren and Owen's peer group, they initially felt it was more of a teen drama situation, that, you know, this was just getting built up into something it didn't need to be, it was going to die down, and it becomes more of a who's done it scenario. So rumours are spreading around the school about who this texter could be. But the messages are really scary because they're so specific, and they're also really timely. And that means that they're referencing things at times that have happened at school literally that day. So it means that the person is common to their environment. This isn't a stranger. This isn't someone who's just chancing their luck, texting a random number and then harassing them. This is someone who knows them. So they're thinking to themselves, who's the likeliest candidate? I mean, they're not going to think it's a teacher, are they? They're thinking to themselves, it's probably one of our fellow students. Now, one school staff member actually said that the messages seemed to come from someone who they knew, which makes sense. And the bully seemed to always know what Lauren's outfits were, what her activities were. And one text actually read, LMFAO, 2 points, you suck. This is right after she'd only scored 2 points in a basketball game. So taking the mick out of her for not doing better. Also, another bragged about her sitting near Owen in a history lesson and taunted Lauren, Surrey, not Surrey, we fucking take you down, bitch. I mean, God, this is happening in her classroom in a history lesson. And she can't trust anyone. Everybody has become a potential enemy. And Lauren ends up doing what every single one of us would do. She starts looking at her longtime friends and thinking, it could be you. And one immediate casualty of this whole scenario is Lauren's relationship with Owen. The bully's texts seem to drive a wedge between them. And many of the messages, of course, were accusing Owen of cheating on her, saying things like he's been flirting with other girls. He said his life would be better if you were gone. And initially, Lauren is trying to brush those off. She's even snapping back at the texter, saying that she and Owen were solid. But over time, understandably, it just takes this relentless toll on them. These insinuations, this needing to check out whether she can truly trust Owen. It affected her level of security within the relationship, and she's also starting to question Owen's loyalty. So she starts sending him really anxious texts. She's saying, you know, are you hanging out with other girls? Do you want to end my relationship? And these are kids. This is not what kids should be doing or experiencing. This is just a pressure and a stress that young people's relationships shouldn't endure. And understandably, it gets tired, it gets bored, it gets old in these situations. And in the end, in November 2021, Owen breaks up with Lauren. And I can imagine that he would have a massive sense of relief, not because he didn't like her, not because he felt she deserved it, but because at the end of the day, who wants to be crowded constantly with a third party in the relationship because this bully has literally embedded them in your connection with your partner? In this case, between Lauren or in this case, there are more than just two people in this relationship, aren't there? There is a third party, albeit an unknown party. Now, he actually used the breakup to some degree as a strategy to remove the bully's ammunition, because Yes, he probably had enough. He just wants to move on, get on with being a young person. But he's also thinking to himself, well, you know what? If I break up with her and we're no longer together and I'm the object of the fascination to some degree with this bully, maybe that will stop Lauren getting harassed. We're no longer together. What's there to bully her about? Lauren, on the other hand, is going through the horror of having this harassment constantly in her life. And now she's lost the boyfriend. So she understandably would be heartbroken. And even worse, that breakup doesn't stop the messages. If anything, they end up getting worse. Lauren's continuing to receive dozens of text messages a day. And now, of course, the bully's got some real ammunition because now they know Lauren is sad. They know that Lauren is heartbroken. So this is a real opportunity to humiliate her further. So they're taunting her about the loneliness she's feeling. They're ridiculing her for losing Owen. So it just gets worse. And in an even further cruel twist, when Owen actually starts dating another girl from a different town, that girl also begins receiving harassing texts from an unknown number. And at this point, the bully falsely tells the girl that Lauren is spreading rumors about her. So it's not just that this bully is getting in contact with a girl that Lauren doesn't know. She's actually incentivizing negativity towards Lauren because she's suggesting that Lauren's doing horrible things about the girl. So she's literally on a multi-layered level trying to completely destabilize Lauren's life. Now, any suspicion towards Owen as a suspect at that point has now been removed. He'd been harassed too. Even his new girlfriend is being targeted. So they start then thinking that it could be one of Lauren's friends or a classmate. Bear in mind, her group of friends was relatively small and tight-knit, but as the message keeps going, the group splinters because people just are feeling that they can't trust one another. Meanwhile, some of Lauren's friends actually thought, it's Lauren. She's the one doing it. She's faking it for attention. Now, again, on a mindset level, Lauren doesn't have that kind of personality. But like I said, this is what trust and mistrust does. It starts to destabilize or incentivize relationships. In this case, it's destabilizing it because no one trusts each other anymore. It could be any of them. And if it could be Lauren now, it could be any of them next. Now, as you'd imagine, they start thinking, who is the most likely candidate to be actually doing this? And they basically zero in on one girl in particular. This girl is called Chloe Wilson. She is a super popular athlete in Lauren's school year. She was a basketball, softball teammate of Lauren's. And in one of the anonymous texts, the bully basically brags, I scored 12 points in the game last night. You suck. Now, as it happened, the previous night, the Beale City Girls basketball team had played, and Chloe was actually the only player to score 12 points. So you can understand the bully, see how suspicion would home in on her. Now, at a meeting with school officials and the local sheriff in January 2022, one of the people to point out the fact that Chloe had that coincidence with the score and the text was Kendra Licari herself. So that is, of course, Lauren's mother. And she's saying, listen, let's just think about this for a minute. The only person who scored 12 points was Chloe. Chloe's in the circle that Lauren knows. They might not be close friends, but they know each other. She's really close to Owen. So she maybe has an incentive for wanting to break them up. And maybe she's made a mistake in sending that text. And during the actual meeting, Kendra actually went and got the scorebook for the game because she wanted to show this score. She was often somebody who ran the scoreboard for the team, and it did indeed confirm that Chloe had 12 points. So to Kendra and Jill, who is Owen's mother, it seemed a real damning slip up by the bully. And of course, for a moment, they're all thinking to themselves, maybe we've got her in our sights. Maybe it is indeed this girl. So once Chloe is now fallen under suspicion, what I would say happens is the social dynamic between all of the young people turns toxic. Now, Chloe, from the get-go, says, I've had nothing to do with these messages, but some of the parents were not convinced. So Chloe later recounted that she could genuinely feel people in town just looking at her differently. It was almost as if she was guilty without any evidence, aside from that one text. She said, I just feel like a lot of people liked me before. I'd close the door of my room and cry over being accused. Her parents, of course, were devastated by this. They knew their daughter was not guilty. They couldn't believe that she was being branded as the culprit without any actual palpable proof. And they went ahead and reviewed hundreds of pages of text transcript themselves. And they were really astute. Her parents were really astute. They said, listen, these messages are not from a kid. They aren't from a teen. They're too sophisticated, they're too relentless. And Chloe's mother actually said to the Wilson family, this is an adult. I wouldn't put it past Kendra. Now, bear in mind, Kendra is Lauren's mother, so of course, people found that impossible to imagine that Lauren's own mother would be responsible. Now, the high school principal, when he was given that tip, was like, this is ludicrous. That idea is implausible. Yes, Kendra might be a little bit on the obsessive side about her daughter, but that's it. So, of course, the rumours quickly brushed under the carpet there. We get to early 2022. At this point, high school staff and the sheriff held meetings with concerned families because it's really escalating. Understandably, Kendra and Owen's mother are often present in those meetings. She was crying, as was Owen's mum. She couldn't believe what her daughter was going through. And Principal Boyer actually had to say no to a proposal that was pushed by Kendra and Jill. They wanted to have this all-parents meeting where the mothers could directly accuse or interrogate the suspected students, which would be absolutely horrifying on every single level, wouldn't it? If you're a kid at school and somebody's parents are basically saying, we think you're responsible for these text messages, that would be absolutely devastating. And understandably, Principal Boyer doesn't want to go ahead with it. Now, this means that the matter was largely handed over to law enforcement because they want someone neutral to actually deal with this. So by early 2022, the Isabella County Sheriff's Office has an active investigation looking at these. Now, Beale City Public Schools, they wanted to involve law enforcement because many of the texts were sent from off campus and after hours, and that limits the amount of the school's ability to investigate or indeed discipline the party involved, because if it's happening outside of school times, it's not their jurisdiction. Now, throughout the local investigation, you've got Kendra Licari understandably coming across as a concerned, really cooperative parent. She's frequently in contact with the school. She's obviously speaking and liaising with Owen's mother all the time. And she really did spearhead efforts to stop the harassment. She's desperate, apparently, to stop her daughter receiving these horrendous messages. She was consoling Lauren at home. She was saying things like, don't let them see it get to you. She also teamed up with Jill McKenney, Owen's mother, to just do some amateur sleuthing. So they're comparing the notes on the timing, the content of the messages. And they're looking for patterns that you or I would wish to do in these circumstances. Of course, we want to check, when is this happening? How does this direct us to a potential suspect? And at one point, Kendra actually complained to the school that certain suspected girls were not being interrogated hard enough. And again, if I was a mother and I felt they weren't doing their due diligence and that kids were harassing my child, I would be saying the same thing. And so Kendra is very convincing about the care and compassion and concern she has about her child. In fact, at the January 2022 meeting in the principal's office, she was literally bawling her eyes out over what her daughter's going through, and understandably so. She was passing around printouts of the text so that everyone could see how awful they were, and everyone witnessing that just saw a devoted, heartbroken mother just desperate to protect her daughter. And she was personally offering to speak to the suspect. She wanted to get a confession from them. But understandably, the right place for all of this evidence is in the hands of investigators, and they start methodically beginning to gather evidence legally. So Sheriff's Department, they subpoena records from social media companies. Now, this isn't easy. Social media companies do not have to give over specific pieces of information if they don't wish to. It can be a very lengthy procedure and they can try to block it. But they notice that some of these messages have come via Instagram and Snapchat, and they want to find out exactly where they've arrived. So they're able, once these are handed over, to trace various phone numbers that texted Lauren, and these are linked to apps like Pinger. So they discover that the sender often used a VPN, and they've done that, haven't they? Because they want to mask their internet address. Now, they don't get very far with the investigation. They need more help. So they get the big boys involved, the FBI. So in April 2022, Sheriff Main contacts the FBI's Mid-Michigan Computer Crimes Task Force for assistance, and Specialist Officer Brad Peter joins the case. Now, of course, the first steps are all about leveraging the data retention policies of those texting apps, because many of the services do keep logs of device info and IP addresses for a short time. Now, we all know IP addresses are very incriminating. If they find your IP address, they find you. So Peter actually asked Lauren's family to immediately forward any new numbers that contacted Lauren or Owen, and Jill McKenney also did the same. Now, one subpoena to the texting company, Pinger, revealed that at least one of the fake numbers had been accessed using IP addresses that could thankfully be traced. Specifically, logs had shown that in one instance, a text had been sent from Mount Pleasant, which is near Beale City, and it had used Spectrum. Another time, through the Wi-Fi at Beale City schools. Now, unfortunately, when the investigators checked the school's network logs, they found that the data didn't go back far enough to pinpoint who was using it at the time in question, but they're starting to get somewhere in this investigation. And the Mount Pleasant Spectrum IP lead, well, that was still hot. That hadn't been discounted. So at this point, Peter requested info from the ISP to see which customer number account was using the suspected IP address around the times of the harassing messages. We get to May 2022. This guy is like a dog with a bone. He ends up receiving hundreds of phone numbers and IP connections, and then he painstakingly goes through and correlated them with known individuals. So basically, his job was to search data for numbers he recognised as being connected to the case. This, of course, included the members of the family of Lauren and Owen. And then they get the breakthrough. So amid the technical logs, guess what? One familiar number appears. And guess who it belongs to? Unbelievably, Kendra Licari, Lauren's mother. In fact, every time one of the fake accounts sent a text to Lauren or Owen, Karen's device's IP address was popping in and out of the connection logs just before and after the messages. How damning. Now, investigators at this point double and triple checked, and they wanted to make sure that they hadn't made a mistake. I mean, this is a big deal if you are accusing somebody's mother of doing this, but it turns out the pattern is consistent and is utterly damning on every level. Now, interestingly, around this same time, some of the people who were closest to Kendra were noticing what could be seen as subtle red flags, if not big red flags. So Jill McKenney, Owen's mother, she said, I got suspicious because she kept bringing up Owen's dating life. This is after Owen and Lauren had broken up. The reality is the only thing she should have been concerned about was the bully harassing her daughter. Also, she was going and watching Owen play in matches, even though she was no longer involved in his life to some degree because Lauren and Owen had split up. So it just felt a little bit fused, this relationship she believed she had with Owen. Then on another occasion, Lauren's father, Sean, he actually saw Kendra's car oddly parked near the school during office hours. And Kendra was sat inside, and apparently she was fiddling with something on her lap. Now, when she realised that she'd been seen, she apparently waved. She kind of gave a clumsy explanation about spilling coffee on herself when she was questioned later on. But all these little pieces of the jigsaw are painting a very challenging picture to deny where Kendra is concerned. Now, by August 2022, so this is nearly 8 months after the formal investigation began, the sheriff's office, at this point armed with the FBI's evidence, is ready to take action. Notably, by this point, by the way, Kendra wasn't working at Ferris State University. She quit a job in 2021. She'd actually told her family, though, that she'd worked from home, so she pretended that she still had a job. In reality, she'd actually been placed on a performance improvement plan for poor performance, and then she'd resigned. So she's lying to the entire family about the fact that she's got a job when she hasn't got a job. That in itself is highly dishonest and very questionable within her nature. So we get to mid-August, and this is when Sheriff Main goes to Kendra's mother-in-law's house. This is where Kendra and Lauren had been staying. They find Kendra outside. She's taking the bins out. At this point, they serve the search warrant. And you can imagine the feeling of dread that starts to rise in Kendra's belly, because there is nothing like realising that you're in the line of fire than officers arriving to carry out a search warrant on the address you're staying at. Now, inside the home, detectives begin to question Kendra. They're also taking her electronic devices because they obviously want to download the data to cross-reference whether she has indeed been doing what they suspect she's been doing. Kendra, at this point, basically says it's just a misunderstanding. She denied everything. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I did none of it. Sheriff Main bluntly asked at this point, are you infatuated with Owen? She said no, she didn't have any inappropriate feelings towards him. And then they bring in the big boys, the digital proof. And at this point, Kendra realizes the game is up. And she said, look, I didn't send the original messages in 2020, but that she, quote, fed off from it and began to send them subsequently. Well, I'm sorry, that in itself is just grotesque, an abandonment of every feeling that you should have as a parent. The idea that some random apparently sent those initial messages and then she thinks, oh, I'm going to feed off this and start ruining my child's life. She also said that there was a group of kids trying to break Lauren and Owen up initially, and she began texting them herself in an effort to get to the bottom of who it was. And she said once she started, she basically got caught up in it and couldn't stop. Okay, whatever. I mean, come on. Once I got caught up in it, I couldn't stop. You sent overtly sexual, disgusting text messages to your own child. You sent horrendous things about the way she looked that could have put her in a whole world of pain psychologically. You promoted her mental distress. What? Because you couldn't stop? You did it because you enjoyed it. You did it because you enjoyed creating the pain. You enjoyed creating the drama. You enjoyed creating the stress. You wanted to cause pain. You went out of your way to do that. And you liked the fact that you were all the center of attention because this horrible thing was happening to your child. You created it so that you had some drama going on that maybe you could project some of your other issues into because you were making such a mess of your real life. And it turned out that she had so many problems in her real life. There was a lot of financial issues because she wasn't working, but she was pretending she was. And they certainly will have contributed to fueling that kind of behavior. Now, at this point, Lauren is brought from a room and she has to witness a mother's confession. Horrendous. One can only begin to imagine the horror that Lauren was feeling in that moment. And body cam footage captures it.
Every message to the kids, your number come back to Tingry or whatever it is, the app that tried to hide it. Your number, even though it was being hid, showed up every single message.
My number?
Yeah. Does it have to do with Owen? Is there an infatuation there with Owen?
Nothing like that.
Okay, and just tell me what did he treat Lauren bad? I mean, something serious went on for a while, right?
It didn't start that way.
Now, when she is told that the bully who's been texting her is a mother, she acts in such a lovely way that it is totally distinct to what one would imagine. She reaches out and she holds her mum's hands. She feels sorry for her mother, which again is diabolical. She is standing there in that moment, not thinking of her own needs, thinking about the needs of her mother, who's now been found guilty of doing something absolutely reprehensible. Now, later on, when she's asked about how that felt, Lauren said, the shock feeling turned into sad, which turned into mad, which turned into crazy. Now, meanwhile, Sean, actually, the father in this case, arrives at the scene. He'd left mid-work after receiving this incredibly panicked call from Lauren. Sean is then able to give the police a critical piece of information. He says, listen, have you got all her technology? And they say that, they've got 2 phones. And it's like, no. She's got a 3rd phone. And he said she keeps it hidden. And whenever I ask her about it, she's really evasive about it. So instantly, he's letting them know she is hiding something from you.
This is the deal. Every time the kid received a message, the number came back. So that was enough for a search warrant. And that's why we're here today. They took her phone and the computer. As my detective was checking that, I started talking to her. I said, well, it's over. It's done.
Yeah, ask her what phone did you take?
She had it in her pocket. I can show you.
She's a couple.
Okay. Well, I have a search warrant for all of them, so I'd like to get all of them.
Is she going to that?
Well, so this is the deal. Felony stalking. That's what the charge is. But I knew there was a lot of things going on. Yeah, I know she was like from Paris, and she had IT background.
At this point, the investigators do search outside the home. They find a gold iPhone. It's tucked away in a stack of firewood. Clearly, that's not where you put a phone if you've got nothing incriminating in it. Where's your phone? Oh, yeah, it's somewhere. Now, where is it? Oh, just hanging around where phones might be. Yes, where is it? Oh, just somewhere. Is it on the windowsill? No. Is it on the desk? No. Is it in your bedroom? No. Just it's somewhere that most people would appreciate a phone would be. Where is it? It's in a pile of firewood. I kid you not. Now, at this point, she was arrested, and rightfully so. So at the scene, that plays out. And I guess that brings us on to what the hell was going on in Kendra's mind that she actually did this to her child. So the big question that we all have is why? Now, when she was confronted, Kendra's initial explanation was that she wanted to get to the bottom of who it was harassing Lauren. Yes, I wanted to get to the bottom of who was harassing Lauren. Okay, so just talk me through how you did that. Well, I thought I'll harass Lauren so that I can out harass the harasser. So the harasser decides that they won't harass her anymore because I'm now harassing her. That doesn't sound like it makes any sense. No, none of it makes sense. But there again, I do store my iPhone in a pile of firewood. I kid you not. But she's just clutching at straws, isn't she? So she basically claims that after those first few anonymous texts were sent in 2020 that are apparently sent by someone, oh, they're just convenient, they're sent by someone else. They would have exactly the same kind of nature as all the other ones, but they were just sent by someone else. I wasn't the initial mover in this situation. No, I was just caught in this passenger situation where I had no option but to just get involved in harassing my own child. But that's what she says. They were sent by someone else. And then she starts sending additional messages to Lauren and Owen because she wanted to know how they'd react, and that would hopefully flush out the original bully. Makes no sense whatsoever. Now, you won't be surprised to know there is no other evidence of any other bully aside from Kendra, but she just maintains this narrative. Now, one theory that was put forth by local prosecutor David Barberi and by Beale City's school superintendent was that it could be a case of Munchausen's by proxy in digital form. Yes, we've moved on now from it being in real physical life. This is now in digital form. Now, there have been other cases that I've covered where people basically do things to other individuals on a catfish level that are diabolical and have actually led to people doing unspeakable things to themselves because of the horror they've endured. I see that evil exists in digital form too these days. But the idea that it's Munchausen's by proxy in digital form, because what they're saying there is it's a factitious disorder. Mum obviously needs attention, and the way she gets attention is to project onto her child all these things. It then means that the child is receiving attention because of what's playing out and also is suffering, and that parent is enjoying the suffering of the child because it gets attention on that child and by proxy them. I just don't buy into it. I get it. It sounds like a nice package. It's Munchausen's by proxy on a digital level. But why don't we just come down to this? She's an attention seeker, full stop. She cares little about her daughter's feelings and emotions. What she cares about is attention for herself. And she goes through life lying and deceiving. And as she gets older, it's more challenging because as you get older, you become less and less visible. And she misses when she was growing up being, as her cousin said, somebody who got attention from people, who sought attention and was received it. This case is where she's losing it, and suddenly she finds an opportunity to be in the center of the picture again. And it's alluring. It's not that she's bothered about her child suffering or she's trying to make her child suffering. She just doesn't care. All she cares about is what she gets from the situation, as opposed to wanting to harm a child so that that child suffers and then gets all the attention placed on them and by proxy the parent. I don't believe that. I think it's much more of a forget the thinking about making a child suffer. She just doesn't have any care or compassion about it. It doesn't matter. She's collateral damage, so to speak, and seeking that validation and being seen as important and people taking notice of her. That's what matters more than anything else, because she is somebody who is egocentric and selfish in nature. Now, of course, if we were talking about Munchausen's by proxy, we would be talking about something like Gypsy Rose. I have covered that case. You are welcome to listen to that. You can go through my catalogue. It's a very intense case, Gypsy Rose. And of course, her mother was 100% guilty of that. She made her daughter ill. But in this case, I suppose they're suggesting that Kendra created a cyberbully so she could play the role of a heroic, long-suffering mother. But I think it's much more that she likes to just engage in the exchanges. because it makes her feel youthful again. She can almost deny her reality and go back to being a nasty teenager in those exchanges. Now, Superintendent Chilman, he noted that it seemed like Kendra, quote, wanted her daughter to need her in such a way that she was willing to hurt her. I mean, again, I guess it makes sense that he would think that way, because I think it's easy to imagine that a parent is doing it because they love a child, not because they want to hurt the child. And so it's a protective mechanism where their relationship becomes even more fused because Kendra wants Lauren to rely on her. But again, I don't think that. I think Lauren was being destroyed and Kendra was witnessing that destruction, and it didn't stop her. Now, the New York Magazine feature on this case basically pieced together a portrait of Kendra's possible mindset. They said, no matter how the texting began, at some point the light switched on, that an anonymous bully would offer Lauren a common enemy, bring attention to her quiet daughter, make Kendra into even more of a supermom, maintain her social alliances, distract her from mounting financial problems, and occupy the empty hours. Now, I do absolutely agree that it would work as a distraction technique. So she's got mounting financial issues. She's not working, but she's pretending to work. So she doesn't want to think about that. So she distracts herself. And certainly that would occupy the empty hours. But she wrote gratuitously inappropriate sexual content. I'm sorry, that is not just about an attentional reality. That is something within her psyche that is diabolical, to actually put your fingers to text and send those messages that are diabolical and highly inappropriate to teenagers is utterly reprehensible, and speaks of someone reliving their youth, but in a way where they have power, where they have an opportunity to be as destructive as possible. That's the allure in that situation, in my opinion. Now, in 2020 to 2021, yes, Kendra was definitely under considerable stress. She lost her job at Central Michigan University in 2019. She had taken another one at the local Ferris State University instead. By 2022, she was failing in that role too, and so ultimately she quit. But she didn't tell her friends, she didn't tell her family about those troubles. She just pretended she was remotely working. And even though that led to financial issues, her house was foreclosed on, for example, she just didn't tell the truth. So that speaks of somebody, yes, who could be considered delusional to some degree, just pretending it'll be all right. Somebody who's living in abject denial, of course, but also someone who is absolutely dishonest. She is dishonest. Now, in 2019, the family moved to a smaller place under a land contract, and so they're trying to get their life together, but of course they're not aware of the fact that she isn't earning money. And it turns out there is some trauma in Kendra's background. So when she was 17, she was sexually assaulted by an acquaintance, but that does not lead to you living in a fantasy world where you abuse your own child. I'm sorry, we're not going to make that mental stretch. The gymnastics mentally there, I'm afraid, are not able to compute at a level where we could draw that parallel. Now, according to what we're told, as Lauren starts high school and she starts dating, Kendra suddenly realizes she's traumatized. She's got this resurfacing of the trauma from her own experiences. And she said, as my daughter was hitting those teenage years, I got scared, very scared. I didn't want her to go through the process that I did. I was reliving what I'd been through, but also at the same time wanting to protect her. I wanted to try to control the outcome of her journey. What? By sending massively inappropriate text messages to her and her boyfriend, sexually overt, explicit messages. Oh yeah, sure, that's highly protective. If I'm not thinking about protecting my children by pretending I'm a horrific, harassing bully, suggesting they take their own lives, doing the most horrendous things to them on a mental level, I don't know what I'm doing with my parenting role. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. Now, psychologists who've looked at this case, some of them do suggest that Kendra's behaviour aligns with factitious disorder, and that it's one that's imposed on another. So it's Munchausen's by proxy. That's the kind of thing that they're saying, as I noted before. But factitious disorder imposed on another is how it would be more modernly known, and that this had manifested in a digital way online. Dr. Mark Feldman noted that in the internet era, such behaviour is easier to carry out because it doesn't require physically hurting anyone. And Feldman actually coined the term Munchausen's by internet in 2000, which refers to people who fake illnesses and adversity online for attention. And we see that playing out where people do GoFundMes and there's nothing wrong with them, or they pretend they've got cancer and go to all lengths to actually make it seem that they are believed in public so that they get lots of attention for that. And in a study, he actually found a small percentage of people admit to digital self-harm. And he and his colleagues have predicted that in some cases, parents might cyberbully their own kids in the same way that some parents feign illnesses in their child to satisfy their own psychological needs. Now, beyond this, investigators did wonder if Kendra could have been jealous of her daughter's relationship with Owen. Yes, probably. Also jealous of Lauren's developing beauty, of her youth. These are all absolute possibilities. And I guess the question is, was she trying to break them up? Did she want to get the attention back on herself because her daughter's attention was going elsewhere? Or did she have some kind of strange feelings towards Owen herself? Kendra's obviously denied this, as you would imagine she would. But there is definitely something about Kendra that I think breaches some boundaries. She wanted to be seen as a friend to Lauren's peers as opposed to a parent. And that's unhealthy. You are a parent first and foremost, and it's not your job to be mates with your kids' friends. It's strange. And I guess that chaos definitely will have helped to divert attention from her personal struggles. But obviously, in doing so, she created a whole world of bigger struggles, including the mental health struggles of her own child. Now, while the town was busy, basically wondering who on earth could this bully be, I suppose no one was actually asking questions about Kendra losing a job or the financial struggles that she has, so she wore that as a useful mask. And this, of course, meant that she maintained her social standing and she got lots of sympathy and attention, which was really helpful because maybe she'd have been getting attention for the fact that she'd lost her job and was still pretending she had one. That was a healthy diversion as far as she was concerned, where she wouldn't need to explain the reality of her life. On the 12th of December 2022, Kendra was formally arrested in Isabella County, Michigan. She was 42 at the time of her arrest. She was charged with 5 felony counts. 2 counts of stalking a minor, 2 counts of using a computer to commit a crime. She was done for obstruction of justice. And of course, when it came down to bond, she actually was released because I guess they didn't think she was a threat to anybody else. So it was a $5,000 bond pending trial. The court did say that she hadn't to have any contact with Lauren or any of the minors involved. Initially, she actually pled not guilty, which is crazy. But there again, so is texting and harassing your own child for a considerable amount of time. At the end of the day, Kendra had no problem doing that. So why would we imagine she had any problem saying, I'm not guilty? Even though all the evidence against me says I'm massively guilty, including with respect to the fact that she literally tells them on body cam that she is guilty. Kendra, I know that you pretended you were working when you weren't, but it's a whole heap of difference when you're literally on body cam admitting what you did. Now, on the 22nd of March 2023, she formally agreed to plead guilty to 2 counts of stalking a minor, because otherwise she'd have been banged to rights and dead to rights in the court of law and everyone would have been able to see what a deceptive human being she was at trial. So 1 count was for each victim, Lauren and Owen, and in exchange, the other counts were actually dropped. So then we get to the sentencing. That was held on the 26th of April 2023. Lauren didn't attend. I imagine it would have been horrific for her trauma-wise to go and see her mum in that situation. I mean, imagine loving someone and knowing they're going to prison because messages were sent you. How conflicting for that child. But Sean, Licari, and also members of Owen's family were present. They were not happy. Sean Licari actually read a statement in court on behalf of his daughter. He expressed disbelief that the woman he once loved could inflict such emotional torture on their child. He described how sick and heartbroken it made him. He said, she stabbed me in the heart, shot me in the heart, and threw it away. Kendra did actually briefly address the court. She apologised for her actions, though, to be honest, some people who were in court said it was very clinical, that apology. She also apologised to Lauren and Owen and said she hoped to one day explain herself. Really? Is that when you figured out an explanation? Because no one on God's earth can ever find a suitable explanation apart from, I'm an incredibly cruel and callous person who put my needs above everybody else's. And I thought, I know this is hurting you, but I don't care. I'm enjoying it. That's the explanation. That's the only explanation that will ever exist, whether she admits that or otherwise. Kendra, that's the explanation. She didn't in court attempt to justify her behaviour because there was no justification for it, but she simply said, "It's a blessing I got caught. I don't know if I would have been able to stop on my own." Well, that's a nice thought. You just cracked on for the rest of your child's days, harassing her until you took your last breath. What a mum. When it came down to the verdict, there was only one, wasn't it? She's guilty, as we know. So the guidelines allowed for multiple year prison terms. Bear in mind, on the mitigating factors, Kendra doesn't have any prior criminal record. She did plead guilty, and that means that she wasn't going to receive the maximum sentence. Judge Mark Duthie actually sentenced Kendra to 19 months to 5 years in state prison. They also addressed the uniqueness of the case. They said it was the ultimate betrayal. They did decide to impose a no contact order between Kendra and Lauren. They said it's up to the family whether or not to rebuild this relationship. Now, in the aftermath, so this is late 2022, early 2023, when the story made the news, Lauren actually left Beale City. So at this point, she attended classes online. She moved in with relatives in different towns. So her life has just been turned absolutely upside down. Now, by autumn 2023, this is Lauren's junior year, she did return to Beale City High School. The social landscape at this point was very different, so many students suspected Lauren was complicit in her mother's actions. And in particular, the people who supported and liked Chloe Wilson felt that. So that's devastating for Lauren. Her mother has caused people to start believing that she must have been in on it. Now, one of Lauren's friends, Natalie, said Lauren herself had started to suspect her mother in the last month before the truth came out, but was too afraid and confused to voice it. So, okay, Lauren had some suspicion, but she certainly wasn't in any way, shape or form guilty of being involved with the mother. Yes, she was too afraid to surface it. Who wouldn't be? I mean, it's lose-lose. You either accuse your mum of something she hasn't done, and that damages your relationship between you and your mum, or it's confirmed that your mother is the person who's done this, and you have to come to terms with the evil within her. Now, during this process, on a fortunate note, Lauren has become much closer with her dad. And this is, of course, because mother is absent, and I guess these kind of things can be a uniting force. He was awarded full custody of Lauren because obviously she was in prison and Lauren needs caring for. And Lauren said, "We just bond so well together." She said that they find ways to laugh together in spite of the horror they've been through. Sean has expressed absolute pride at how resilient Lauren's become and that she's really beginning to regain her confidence. And Lauren has, in spite of everything, decided to pursue higher education, and she's going into criminology. I'm not surprised, Lauren. I am not surprised. And that is not joking. I would feel the same. Believe me. I would want to know that if my own mother can do this to me, what can other people do to people they don't know, for example? And so criminology would be something that I would look at, or psychology. She has expressed really complicated feelings about her mother, and rightfully so. She loves her. That's what she'll feel, love. But the love is now impacted by all these other layers that have occurred because of Kendra's actions. She's also openly admitted that she really misses her mum. She said, "I feel like I'm definitely missing a part of me." They did keep in touch via monitored emails while Kendra was in prison, and she said that she liked communicating with her mum in that limited way. Kendra has been very apologetic, and Lauren says she is open to someday having a relationship with her. Whether that will ever heal properly, well, that's something that only time will tell. Now, when it came down to Owen McKenney, the other victim, and his family in this case, well, first of all, Lauren and Owen aren't really friends anymore. They definitely didn't rekindle their relationship. Owen avoids Lauren at school, said, "I was mad at Lauren. I don't think I'll talk to her in the future." Owen, it wasn't Lauren's fault. Don't be an ass. You might have been in that line of fire, but my God, Lauren got hit from every single angle. The last thing she needs is you not being sweet to her. She did nothing wrong. She's lost more than any of you. Don't get me wrong, he's dedicated himself to sports. He was elected homecoming king, and he actually plans to attend college. He wants to continue playing sports. On the 8th of August 2024, guess what? Kendra was released on parole for good behaviour. So that means that she served around 16 months total at the Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility in Michigan. She's going to remain on supervised parole until February 2026. And upon that release, Kendra went to live with her family in Detroit. Is it just me? Would you not just walk around being perpetually embarrassed and ashamed? I would literally be like, I'm going to have to change my whole identity. I need a new name. I need a new face. Somebody needs to come and do something to my face so nobody recognizes me. I would literally be a dog with a tail between its legs for the rest of my life. Now, she has kept a low profile. I say that even though she did agree to be interviewed on the Netflix doc on the case. So low profile, apart from going on a massively successful Netflix documentary as the person who was the perpetrator. I swear, if I had been asked to do that, I'd have been like, no, I can't ever show my face in public, let alone on TV. But Kendra didn't get the memo. But there again, her cousin did say she likes to be the centre of attention. And there she is, the centre of attention in a case about her being a criminal against her own daughter. I kid you not. Some people have got personalities I will never understand. Lauren, it turns out, has not immediately reunited with the mother. She said that she wants to approach the relationship with more caution. Good on you, Lauren. That's the right attitude. She does hope in the future that they'll be able to rebuild the relationship, but only if it can be healthy. Lauren, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Really, I'm sorry. I'm not sure it can be healthy. And I'll tell you why. You're always going to think in the back of your mind, what is mum up to? Everything that goes wrong in your life, you'll be thinking maybe it's her. If you have kids, you'll be worried about what she does to them. And I know it's really challenging, but I genuinely think you have to have a healthy amount of cynicism when it comes down to any rebuilding of that relationship. She said, I wanted to get the help that she needs so that when we do see each other, it doesn't go back to the old ways and how it was before. I love her more than anything. And that is heartbreaking as far as I'm concerned, because with respect, Kendra does not deserve that amount of love. It's not fair. The fact is that when it comes down to Lauren, at this moment in time, as she's going through those ages, which are challenging enough, she hasn't really had a ton of relationships to compare the one that she has with the mother to. But in the end, let's just hope that Lauren meets people in her life that want the best for her, that raise her up, that make her feel seen and valued as she deserves, and that her life goes on to have relationships that inhabit only good, because that's what she deserves. What Kendra did to her daughter, it's evil. It's evil beyond measure. And how can you truly ever rebuild trust when somebody will go to those lengths to get attention for themselves at a cost to you? A parent is meant to do everything in their power to prevent the pain their child endures, including running in front of a moving vehicle and getting themselves killed if it protects the child that they love. That's what a good parent does. Physical, literal, emotional, metaphysical, it doesn't matter. Pain. We protect our children from pain. And in this case, Kendra did the absolute opposite. And don't get me wrong, Kendra's paid a price as well. Her selfishness, her egocentricity, her lack of care, her deception. Ultimately, it's cost the most important relationship in her life, the one that she had with her daughter. But you know what? The punishment fits the crime. This is one of those cases that really does beg a belief. You sit there and you think to yourself, you know, our kids are always at risk in this digital age from cyberbullying. They are at risk from receiving random messages off nasty strangers or people that they don't get on with in their world. But the idea that the malevolent, inappropriate, sexually explicit messages could come from the very person who birthed them and brought them into this world, that is incomprehensible. Do you think Kendra and her daughter will ever be able to have a decent relationship? Are you more hopeful than I am? Because I'm afraid, call me cynical, call me old, I just don't know how you could ever get back from this kind of situation. Maybe some of you are more forgiving. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you again next time. And I'm sorry that I've had my little passenger with me today, but I'm afraid that when it comes down to making these videos, I will always come through with the goods. And that means sometimes I have my beautiful little assistant, Ella Gray. See you again next time, guys. Loads of love. Be safe.